Almost every kind of archaeological discovery is significant in some way, but many of them are similar to things that have been found before. Even some of the world's most experienced archaeologists feel that if you've seen one ancient piece of pottery or ceramics, you've seen them all. They yearn for more unique, unexpected discoveries, the type that are hard to explain or understand. That's what you'll find in this video: strange, one-of-a-kind artifacts with mysteries attached to them. This next find is just as surprising as the giant skeleton, and this time it has more solid scientific proof. Experts now agree that the footprints in Tanzania, which are 3.7 million years old and were long thought to be made by bears, were actually made by early humans. The prints were discovered by paleontologist Mary Leakey in the years 1976 to 1978 at a site in Laetoli. However, they were not correctly understood and were thus incorrectly labeled. We now believe they are the oldest direct proof of humans walking upright globally. The species that made them was likely Australopithecus afarensis, the same species to which the famous skeleton called Lucy belongs. How they were initially considered bear prints is unknown. Bears have wide feet that taper at the toes, while human feet are more squared and have prominent big toes. Both of those traits are evident in the prints. Chimpanzee prints can look similar, but they don't have the wide heels we see here. It's fair to say these footprints have altered our understanding of human history. The amount of information we are certain about regarding the Picts who lived in Scotland thousands of years ago is quite limited. They did not leave behind any written language, and most of the information we have about them comes from the Romans, who considered them to be savages. However, artifacts such as the Sueño stone show that they were more cultured than that. It is the largest of all the surviving Pictish cross slab stones in the country, standing an impressive 21 feet tall. Archaeologists think it was built between 850 and 900 AD. The questions of who built it and why are still not answered. The surface designs include a scene that could show a royal ceremony, but it's too worn to know for sure. The battle scene on the east side is much easier to see, but whether it's a depiction of an actual battle or a fictional one is not known. There are more battle scenes on other panels, so it could be a war memorial rather than something related to Pictish royalty. Whatever it is, it's definitely not the work of uncivilized people. By the 18th century, maps of every populated area of North America were commonplace. That makes it a little strange that archaeologists discovered the burned remains of a previously unknown tavern in Brunswicktown, North Carolina, in June 2019. This bar isn't on any modern map of the area and looks like it burned down for unknown reasons sometime in the 1760s. The fire made the walls and ceilings fall down onto the floor, sealing everything under them like a time capsule. To add to the mystery, archaeologists investigating the ruined tavern found smoking pipes that seem unused and iron tools unlike any experts have seen before. One possible explanation for why the tavern was not recorded officially is that it also served as a brothel for sailors who visited the nearby port, which local authorities likely disapproved of. Aside from the pipes and mystery tools, archaeologists also found liquor bottles, brass taps from wine barrels, and Irish pennies stamped with the date 1766. This was obviously once a thriving hub of activity, but seems to have been intentionally erased from history. In February of the year 2021, a farmer working on his land near Skara Brae on the Scottish island of Orkney made an unexpected discovery. He accidentally disturbed a stone burial chamber, and inside the chamber there was a perfectly preserved complete human skeleton. As per the archaeologist brought by the farmer to the location, this ancient person has been waiting to be found for around 4,000 years. The farmer does not know how the mound stayed hidden for so long, or how no one else found it before. The cyst was sealed so tightly that even small animals couldn't get in and disturb it, so the smallest bones remain in their original location. The skeleton is buried alone without any other burial sites nearby. Experts now need to determine if this was someone from the Skara Brae settlement, or if this finding indicates another previously unknown Neolithic settlement somewhere else on the island. Archaeologists discovered a badly damaged ancient wall, apparently constructed by humans, near here in 2019, and so started to wonder if there was more to discover here. This lucky discovery is the first indication that they're heading in the right direction. Archaeologists in Poland still aren't sure what to think about the Bronze Age mace head discovered in Dukla around the middle of the year 2019, but they believe it most likely is not from the local area. It appeared during an exploratory excavation intended to uncover remnants of the Second World War, yet this artifact is much older and probably much more intriguing. If it can be proven that the artifact is not Polish in design, it will be the oldest non-Polish object ever found in the country. That confirmation probably will not get historians any closer to finding out who made it, but it's a start. No other Bronze Age relics were found during the excavation, so the artifact seems strangely out of place. It is likely about 3,000 years old and resembles but is not identical to mace heads that were common in the Middle East during the same period. Initially, it was likely connected to a wooden handle and used more as a symbol of power than as a weapon. It probably entered the country via the Carpathian Mountains. However, tracing it back to its origin has been impossible so far. Some people claim that St. Kilda is the most mysterious island globally. It's the most isolated among the British Isles, distant from Scotland's mainland, and mostly has an abandoned village encircled by the sea. Anyone who lived here would be almost completely isolated, which is likely why no one lives here now. The last people left for Scotland in the 1930s after life here became too hard when the fishing industry collapsed. Many people used to live here before, and they constructed these small stone huts for shelter. They are called clutin, made from dry stone walls with a stone slab roof, and then a layer of turf to prevent rain from entering. Even though they offered some protection, the structures were designed to let wind pass through, making them very cold and not very practical to live in. Later, standard houses were built on the island, and the origins and purpose of the Clutean structures became a mystery lost to time. There might not be a more amazing collection of rock carvings anywhere in the world than the Dazhou rock carvings located in Chongqing, China. The site features thousands of stone carvings, with most drawing inspiration from religion. We are not discussing a single religion. The sculptures here include works inspired by Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. Dating a stone artifact is always challenging, yet most historians think the oldest carvings were created in the 7th century. The latest one is about 500 years newer than the previous one. It seems that work was abruptly stopped, and the reason is unknown. Another major mystery about this site is why the Chinese government kept it a secret, even from their own citizens, until the 1960s. They finally chose to open it to local tourists in the 1980s, and then permitted international tourists to visit the artwork 20 years later. Besides the religious statues, there are also carvings depicting ancient Chinese people's everyday activities, making Dazhou a priceless historical archive. A major archaeological dig started at the Zirzavan Castle in Diyarbakir, Turkey, in the summer of 2021. The goal of the archaeologists there is to discover relics and artifacts from Turkey's Roman era, and they have already found some. However, the Roman discoveries are not the most remarkable things unearthed at the site. That honor goes to this tiny seal. It's the Great Seal of the United States of America and dates back to the USA's earliest days as a country independent from British rule. The position of the seal is very odd. It was discovered near the eastern wall of the 3,000-year-old castle in an archaeological layer that is estimated to be 2,000 years old. However, the seal dates back to the year 1782. It bears the motto E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase that translates into English as from many to one. This was the first national motto of the United States of America. The seal is in relatively good condition and still clearly shows 13 stars to represent the 13 former colonies that make up the newly independent country. Archaeologists have no clue about how it got here. The only idea they have is that someone buried it on purpose 200 years ago as a joke, knowing that archaeologists would find it one day and be puzzled. Our first artifacts are so small you have to look at them through a magnifying glass to appreciate their intricacy and beauty. They're tiny gold foil carvings, no bigger than a human fingernail, and they were found on farmland in Koling, Norway, by an amateur archaeologist with a metal detector. Someone clearly put a lot of effort into making them, but historians cannot figure out who did it or why. We know that Koling was a significant gathering spot for tribal leaders approximately 1,500 years ago. Were these small golden artworks connected to those gatherings in some way? If they were, how were they connected? At first, they were considered to be Viking Age relics, but now we understand they are older than that. They belong to the Merovingian era, a time when Norway was divided into smaller warring sub-nations. So far, artifacts like this have only been found in Scandinavia, specifically in places known to have been inhabited or visited by rulers. These may have been some kind of tokens, but their exact use is unknown. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 89, and trapped the city of Pompeii like a fly in amber, it also claimed the Herculaneum Library. It is now the only surviving library from ancient times, but the eruption burned it and everything inside it. That includes these 2,000-year-old scrolls, which presumably contain information that might tell us a lot about what life was like in the region before the eruption. We don't know for sure, though, because they're rolled up and crumpled and in far too fragile a state to ever be opened again. That may not be a problem for much longer, though. Using the synchrotron particle accelerator in the Diamond Light Source facility in Oxford, England, scientists believe they can virtually open the scrolls and read their contents using the power of harnessed light beams, and they are actively working on the project right now. Due to the age of the Herculaneum Library and the fact that no other libraries from that time have survived, the scrolls are considered a treasure trove for archaeologists, providing information that is unattainable elsewhere. If the project succeeds, it could significantly enhance our knowledge of ancient Roman culture. As we are talking about old things that we do not understand, let's remind ourselves that we still haven't fully translated many of the world's oldest forms of writing. You can see examples of it here on these stone tablets discovered at the Sedeinga necropolis in Sudan in November 2017. The writings on the stone are in a language known as Meroitic, believed to be the earliest written language of the Sahara, and it cannot be completely understood. It is believed that the items date back to the kingdoms of Meroe and Napata, approximately 2,700 years in the past. Sedeinga is a vast necropolis, often referred to as the City of the Dead. It spans over 2.5 million square feet and contains 80 brick pyramids. The tablets likely narrate the histories of those interred here. However, aside from recognizing that some symbols are borrowed from Egyptian hieroglyphics, their meanings remain undeciphered. We can see the names of a few places, and probably the names of a few people too, but the intricacies of their stories are lost to time. Jomondogu are not unusual finds in Japan. They have been uncovered at archaeological excavation sites in regions such as Kanto, Chubu, Hokkaido, and many other areas. In over 100 instances, artifacts were discovered in Ashimura in a single year. Despite having so many samples to analyze, it's surprising that archaeologists are still not completely sure why the Jomon people created numerous clay figures or their intended purpose. The Jomon period came to an end around 3,000 years ago, with most of the dolls being at least that old, and sometimes even up to 4,000 years older. Their best guess is that they played a role in fertility rituals, as many Jomondagu seem to depict pregnant women. Most of them are found broken, possibly on purpose as part of the final ritual stage. Some are intentionally buried in circles, likely for ritual reasons. Unfortunately, there are no Jomon shamans left to ask, so we may never know the answers. Every year on the 20th of August, people in Hungary celebrate the Day of Saint Stephen. During this celebration, the preserved and severed hand of Saint Stephen is taken from the basilica dedicated to him in Budapest and shown around the city. That's quite a strange tradition, but this is quite a strange artifact. The hand is known as the Holy Rite and has been a venerated object ever since 1083. That's the year Saint Stephen was canonized. As part of his canonization, his tomb was opened and his body was exhumed. Records from the time indicate that while the rest of his body had decomposed to bones, his right arm was miraculously still intact with flesh and well preserved. For some reason, it seemed like a good idea to remove the arm. The hand was separated from the arm in the 13th century, when the arm was sent away to protect it from the Tartar invasion of Hungary. The monks in charge of keeping it safe thought the best thing to do was to cut off the hand, send it to Lemberg, and the lower arm to Vienna. Although the destiny of the forearm is not known, the hand was finally returned to Hungary from Austria by American troops after World War II. Every image of Jesus Christ you've ever seen shows him with facial hair and long locks. But is that image true to life? The oldest depiction of Christ might not show him. This image is etched on a glass plate found in Spain in 2014, dating to the 4th century. The plate likely held Eucharistic bread in early Christian rituals. By the time it was discovered near Linares, Spain, it was broken into pieces, but archaeologists managed to restore about 80% of it. The illustration shows Jesus next to the cross, with figures thought to be St. Peter and St. Paul on either side. He seems unusually tall, indicating his status. More strikingly, he has no beard, short hair, and is in a Roman philosopher's toga. Styles changed dramatically in 4 centuries, so this might reflect 4th century fashion and how Jesus maintained his hair and beard. But it makes us wonder where the traditional image of a bearded Jesus originated. You need to have faith to believe the truth of this next discovery. But let's examine the facts and try to draw some conclusions. It's an aluminum item, and it's about 250,000 years old. This poses a significant problem for archaeologists and historians, because humans only began making aluminum roughly 200 years ago. Considering this, it's not surprising that some think it could be part of an alien spaceship. It was discovered in Romania during the communist era in 1973, but was so controversial that it wasn't made public until decades later. The object's purpose is unknown, but it is definitely man-made. Putting the unidentified flying object theory aside, some experts have speculated that it might be part of an axe. There are 12 different metals present in the artifact, but aluminum constitutes 90% of it. Another set of tests carried out in Switzerland in recent years have suggested that it is only approximately 8,000 years old. That seems more believable considering human involvement, but it still doesn't explain how it could have been created using aluminum. The oracle statue called Kafa Jalojo is now part of the Met Museum collection in New York City, United States. What it represents, aside from having a human-like form, is still unknown, and its age is also undetermined. It is believed to be made by the Senufo people. Some individuals who have seen it personally mention feeling anxious without being able to articulate why. Kafa Jalojo translates into English as "he who speaks the truth." It might represent the invisible bush spirits that the Senufo believe in, and modern-day Senufo say it might have been used in trials to determine when someone is lying. People say only the oldest man or woman of a tribe could have owned it, and even then, it wasn't shown in their homes. It was probably made in the Ivory Coast and is likely around 200 years old, but neither of those facts is certain. The capabilities of people long ago were often greater than we think. One example is this rock drill from 7,500 years ago, found in Turkey's Bursa province in May of 2019. The tool was discovered within a grave. Experts are uncertain if it was utilized during the building of the grave or held significance for the interred individual. It is believed that humans first came to the area approximately 1,000 years before the tool was created. The sharp flint stone has been likened to present-day drill bits, indicating that the inhabitants of the Aktapraklik settlement mound were skilled builders. Decorative stone beads found elsewhere in the tomb were likely drilled by the tool. Archaeological excavations have been ongoing here since 2004, with the best discoveries displayed at the Aktapraklik Settlement Mound Archaeopark and open-air museum for visitors. This rock drill now has a special place in the museum. For hundreds of years, our next discovery has guided the many caravans and wagon trains that have crossed the Andes. It's the archaeological rock art site known as Cruces de Molinos in Chile, which is covered in depictions of humans, camelids, and exotic birds. The site is located in the middle of a route that was frequently traveled by merchants between the 10th century and the 15th century, before the arrival of the Incas. There are over 60 engraved blocks here, featuring artwork divided into 27 panels. The grooves and furrows made by the wagons and carriages that pass through the Cruces de Molinos are still visible on the ground. Some of the artwork has been understood as guidance, while other examples might have important information for travelers. The area could also have religious importance. Some of the discoveries made here, buried in the hard ground, are believed to be offerings to the goddess Pachamama, a powerful deity with influence over the earth, fertility, and time. Unfortunately, the site is unprotected and risks being completely eroded in the coming years. As anyone who follows fashion knows well, trends change. What is trendy now may seem old-fashioned in 5 years, but will likely return a few years later. This applies to hairstyles as well as clothing, and it even seems to hold true for the much maligned 1980s mullet. This statue, discovered in February 2021, is thought to be a depiction of an ancient Celtic deity, but it could just as easily be a statue of a 1980s football player. They not only have the right hairstyle for the era, but also seem to have a mustache. The small copper figurine, only about 2 inches tall, was found at an archaeological excavation in Cambridge, England, and is approximately 1900 years old, dating back to the Iron Age. It was probably a handle for something, maybe a spatula, but whatever it was attached to has long since decayed or vanished. Either the people of the area believed their gods had mullets and mustaches, or this is a depiction of the men's fashion of that era. There you go, mullet wearers. Your time will come again, even if it takes 2,000 years. As Rome's influence waned in Western Europe, the Goths gained prominence for a short time. Although they were a major force in the area for just a few centuries, their accomplishments were significant. They became the first Germanic group to embrace Christianity, leading to the creation of the Codex Argenteus. The enigmatic Silver Bible is deemed the pinnacle of medieval religious manuscripts. Initially, it was thought that the entire codex was crafted by Ulfilas, a leading bishop, but it is now believed to have been transcribed by multiple scholars under his direction. The Bible was first translated into the Gothic language, making it a significant and cherished artifact. It's likely that Ulfilas created it for Theodoric the Great. He even developed the entire Gothic alphabet for this purpose. Otherwise, he would have had to use the existing runic alphabet, which was not suitable due to its perceived links to pagan heritage. It is truly unique, created on calfskin and dyed royal purple. After completion, it disappeared for 1,000 years following Theodoric the Great's rule, only to reappear at Werden Abbey in the 16th century. Nobody knows what happened to it during those 10 centuries, but that only adds to its legendary status. Have archaeologists discovered where the Last Supper took place? Some certainly believe that. This 2,000-year-old ritual bath, called a mikveh, was found near the Garden of Gethsemane in December 2020. Fittingly, the discovery was made very close to Christmas. A statement from the Israel Antiquities Authority confirmed the finding. It also confirmed the discovery of the remains of a 1,500-year-old Byzantine-era church at the same site at the foot of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. This is the first direct archaeological evidence of human activity at Gethsemane during the time of Christ. It seems there's also an oil press around, supporting some stories from the New Testament. Workers would have used the bath to purify themselves according to Jewish law before starting work. Many archaeological digs have happened at the site since 1919, but the ritual bath somehow stayed hidden until now. It isn't definitive evidence that the Last Supper took place here, but it's possibly the closest we'll ever come. In November 2016, citizens of Jerusalem got their first look at the mysterious ancient artifact known as the Galilean Star when it was exhibited at the headquarters of the Israeli Antiquities Authority. The challenging object was found in a cave in Jordan in the 1930s, but it still hasn't been completely understood. The star with 8 points might have been made with a specific purpose or some symbolism, but we still don't know what that is. It's a mystery that's over 6,000 years old. This star was painted on the cave walls way before the first cities existed, and even before any form of writing was invented. The Galilean Star is a relic from the Copper Age, before bronze was used, when even advanced human settlements were just small farming villages. Some historians think it represents the sun and suggest it was used by sun worshippers, but there's no solid proof. It may not have been meant as a solar symbol. It's a mystery and shows we still have a lot to learn about our ancient ancestors. Hadrian's Wall is a very famous Roman structure in Britain, but many people mistakenly think it is just one long wall. It's not. Instead, it is composed of numerous smaller walls and bridges, including the Willowford Roman Bridge, situated on the east bank of the River Irthing in Cumbria. This bridge was once considered to be relatively insignificant, but recent years have brought about a change in this perspective. Archaeologists now believe that the bridge, constructed in 122, carried Hadrian's Wall over the river, instead of being a simple footbridge for Roman soldiers to cross the river, which no longer runs through this region. It actually supported the full weight of the wall. Not much is left today, except for the foundations and the base of a tower that used to be part of the bridge. The way the stones are joined with dovetails and bar cramps is particularly interesting to archaeologists. This technique is complex and would later be used by fine furniture makers. It is another example of Romans being way ahead of their time. We will ask you to once again suspend your disbelief for this next discovery. Apparently, this is the skeleton of a giant human discovered in Krabi Cave, Thailand, in May 2020. For those who think the skeleton is genuine, it's proof that the legend of the Nagas, serpent people, said to have lived in Thailand long ago and mentioned in Hindu stories, is true. The skeleton measures 16 feet in length and was discovered enveloped in the remains of an equally large serpent. The discovery seems quite convincing, so why haven't there been more reports about it? The reason for this is that the skeleton is just a bit too flawless. It is completely intact, which is almost unheard of for skeletons that are several thousand years old, and it appears too pristine. The circumstances of its discovery are also a bit too convenient to be believable. The Krabi Cave has been explored many times by archaeologists over the years, and one of them would definitely have seen a huge skeleton lying on the ground in plain view. We must conclude that this is more likely a fake than a real giant, but it's a very well done one.